As promised, after finishing my full Higurashi rewatch, I went through and got caught up on that time I got reincarnated as a slime. I haven't done any impressions or reviews or thoughts on Reincarnated as a Slime since the first season ended. So I got a lot to cover. Not really necessarily a whole lot. I have an OAD to go over, the first part of the second season, as well as my thoughts all the way up to episode 9 of part 2. So definitely a lot of interesting stuff to cover in this episode. So I hope you guys are interested and you stick around. Unlike my usual episode by episode impressions, I usually go through pretty much everything that kind of happens and kind of discuss it as I go along. I'm not going to discuss everything that happened because a lot of stuff happened, but I am going to hit some few key points that had some interesting parts in it that I thought. So yeah, as the second season starts off, we get a little brief kind of recap as to where everybody's at, and that's one point when we get to the delegations from Eorzania coming over to the Tempest town to do some delegations. I really did like the beginning parts of this, having these duels that are just randomly happening. Obviously, find out that they're just trying to, make sure that they're equals, that they're worthy of them to actually deal with. And I like the segment where Shion's got this big old energy ball and she doesn't know what to do with it after they stop the fight. So she's like to stand there going, "What do I do?" Obviously, Remu just absorbs it with gluttony. But what I really liked especially about this particular scene is, and this is one of those things that kind of happens as it goes along, is everybody in the area is like super shocked that he's able to just, okay, I'll just absorb this huge energy ball, when everybody else was literally panicking going, "What do we do?" But Ranga's like, everybody's like, "Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy." Ranga's like, "Yep, that's my master." It's like he's the only one that's at this point like, "Yeah, my master could do that. What are you guys freaking out about?" Even like the people that have been around Remu this long, they don't get it. But of course, they make some plans to trade fruits to Tempest, while Tempest supplies liquor back to them, which does come to effect when he goes and meets Dwargen later on. I did like the whole segment with Dwargen, just mainly in the idea that it kind of gives us a little brief idea of how advanced they've gotten since, he first went and met Dwargen. But in this particular scene, having this whole aspect of essentially Dwargen helping him. Because obviously, Remu himself, he's not a born leader. So he always has these little kind of areas where he can probably benefit to improving on. But even still, it's one of those aspects of like you weigh the difference in, but this is Remu. This is why everybody loves him so much. Remu doesn't do that. But at the same time, there is an element that he could be seen as weak. So as he does his speech, like right following after the speech, Dwargen's like, too short, too humble, and it relies on the sympathy of others. And it technically makes sense. Yeah, it was short. And he does technically in that speech, he doesn't really speak to them as a higher. He speaks to them as an equal that needs their aid. But again, that's why, yeah, Dwargen doesn't see why you would do that. You're a king. But on the other side sees it as, this person's an equal and he needs my help. It makes them more willing to help rather than just being told, you have to help. So it's a conundrum, obviously. But yeah, we get a goofy scene with them at the elf house again, and they get caught. Shuna catches them. I like how the sage is like detecting huge malice and energy behind Smile. But this is obviously, we're getting a picture of this Falmouth kingdom, this kingdom that is in the west that is very jealous, very greedy nation, and that's going to come into play obviously later as Falmouth apparently decides to use the church as their spine to go after Tempest, because Tempest is essentially bleeding them of a lot of merchants. Merchants don't go to Falmouth anymore, they just go to Tempest. And that makes them, it basically a kill or be killed situation for them in their eyes, because they can't compete and they want their money and they're starving. So they're going to go to war with Tempest in their greed. And of course, they use the church because the church sees the monsters as evil and that they must be destroyed. Not only do they get the church that has Hinata, which is somebody from Caesar's past, a very strong warrior, they also get the apparently some Otherworlders. They do have apparently some Otherworlders in their midst. And this is where I kind of was a little miffed. Not at this particular point, but having the introduction of these 3 Otherworlders, I'm like, oh, cool. We've never really had any other Otherworlders pointed out except for like Shizue and I think some other ones surrounding her backstory. If they explain it then, I'm not sure. But we don't have that many Otherworlders. And so whenever one pops up, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This could be a cool addition to the story. What's going to be their story? Where are they from? Such and such. And sadly, I was very disappointed by these three. I was really expecting more from their character, but we really didn't get much from them other than they just are evil because evil. I don't know. It didn't really explain why their mentality was that they were so, I guess, heartless. It didn't explain why they were so bloodthirsty. I mean, you can go with the argument that maybe, it's the I'm a spider, so what kind of mentality where, oh, this is my world and I'm supposed to be the hero. You can go with the argument of this is just a video game, so we could just destroy all these people, right? It never really explained them, other than this, that they're diabolical and evil. So if I had to be very honest, I think this was probably the weakest or the biggest disappointment of the last two cores was just not really getting much from these three characters, and they could have done something really cool with them in the end. But yeah, they send these three Otherworlders in there first so that they can give some sign that humans are being attacked by the monsters, which I don't really necessarily think was necessary. You slaughtered everybody on the street anyways. I don't think you really necessarily need to point out that it, like a big huge army showing up out of nowhere following some person going, oh, this monster touched me, I think is a little suspect, but it played out. They had the Otherworlders come in there, act like they got attacked by something. They used one of the Otherworlders' ability to basically control people's minds to think that she was being attacked and to pull them onto her side. So she has like a manipulation that she can do. It's called a bewilder. And as they're kind of being attacked, and they start fighting because essentially Shuna's ability prevents the bewildering to actually happen, they just do an all-out battle, and then the armies come rushing in and they kill a lot of people. At the same time, Remenu's just coming back. He tries to come back, and that's when he gets in a fight with Hinata. Hinata was all right. I'm kind of holding off my thoughts on Hinata at this point. So far, she's just, you killed my friend and I won't listen to you, which is kind of a thing that they love to do. It's just the character that you could technically explain this really easily, but they don't. They just keep fighting. The fight was pretty cool, pretty awesome action scenes. The crazy incinerate ability that she uses was insane. His kind of method of utilizing, even though he had like all of his powers removed, and it was like this moment of, yeah, you could possibly die. It gives that little sense in there of like how you can possibly make a situation where Remenu is actually in danger, which is kind of a hard thing to pull off. But this idea of this super barrier that can actually reduce his magic is technically a way to do that. But yeah, kind of splits himself off so that he can fake out that he's dying just to get away from her. It was pretty clever. And then obviously he finally gets back to his town that's wrecked. Got a lot of destruction, a lot of death. I got a little frustrated in this particular scene when he comes back because everybody doesn't want to tell him what's going on. It's like, so where's this person? You should come over here. And then he asks again, so what happened here? You should follow us. It's like, just tell us what the hell happened. Like, tell us that Shion's dead. Just tell us that Shion's dead. Man, that was a little bit of a frustrating thing. But yeah, technically we did have, again, a barrier being placed on Tempest as well. So pretty much everybody that was defending the city didn't do a very good job, and the Otherworlders got the upper hand, and it didn't end too well. Obviously, at the same time, we did also have, what was her name? Muron? Muron was this Majin that was being controlled by Carrion, and she basically whipped two guys, not just one, Yom and the other guy, into falling her to death and basically causing the death of so many people because cute woman. I do understand the idea that she technically was manipulating him to a loving bond, but at the same time, it's like, geez, you're gonna sacrifice an entire nation for this chick because woman. But yeah, this is the frustrating part because I'm gonna be perfectly honest. When the moment that they actually showed that Xion was dead, I was like, dang, they're getting very serious with this story. It's always been like up until this point. I think my brother even alluded to this when I mentioned the idea that, Rimuru is overpowered and he's never gonna face a problem. And he's like, well, just wait. I think he was probably talking about this particular point. which it did give a sense of that helplessness. Like I said, the fight with Hinata was fantastic in the idea that it presented something that prevented him from being at his full potential, thus making him killable. And now I hope that doesn't always end up being the case. Like every time we have to fight him, he has to do something that makes it to where he's not super overpowered, and that's the reason why it's tough. But it was cool to get the sense of dread because, again, he was preventing getting back home. You've seen the devastation that was happening. He makes it back home. You see the devastation firsthand with Rimuru, and you feel that dread that he's not always going to keep everybody safe. He can't always be there to keep it. I think even Benimaru says it's not your fault. We failed to protect the city. It was our job. Benimaru took it upon himself. He's like, I screwed up. This is my fault. These people died because of me. We can't always have you protecting us. We have to get stronger. And I like that. The sad thing, I'm of two minds following this, because on one hand, I'm very frustrated because it feels like this writer can't keep to his decisions. You chose to have a character die, and you chose to undo it. And now, from now on, I will never believe that this writer can commit to a character dying. This is a point in which he could have shown that, yeah, Rimuru can screw up, and yeah, people can die in my story. But instead, we've already established this point. Nah, no character's ever going to die. This was your point. This was your opportunity to show that there was cost here. At the same time, I'm not expecting this show to do that. I'm not expecting every single story writer to have death and have death have meaning. This is a show that's supposed to have fun. Nobody wants to see Shion die. This is a fun show. Having Shion die was, again, dreadful. I don't want that. She's not my character type, and I don't necessarily like the big-chested drunkard girl. It's for each their own. And the Shion fans out there probably were not happy. So it's fine in the end, especially since the fact that the process in which to revive Shion was cool. I thought that it took a lot of effort. This wasn't just Rimuru goes, no, Shion's dead. Well, unlock super healing power. She's revived. It wasn't easy. The process to do it was complicated, and you can argue that there was a percent chance it would not work. But not only that, but it melded in Milim's story, which was cool. To have the story of the Dragon Princess was really cool. It's funny because it's like, here's the story, and it cuts through like 3 different arts, and then suddenly out of nowhere, it's like, yep, that's Milim. I see that underwear bottom thing that she wears. That's definitely Milim. But yeah, it was cool that it wasn't just a simple process. That this was like a complicated scenario. Okay, get together 10,000 deaths. Oh, or lives. Oh, well, there's an army coming here. Guess that's convenient. Here comes the army. They're coming in to finish the job, basically. Okay, well, then you also have to become a demon lord. Oh, that's definitely a commitment. Now, granted, I assumed quite a while back that eventually Rimuru was going to become a demon lord. Everything was painting that was going to be the eventual goal of the story. Is where do you advance from where he's at? Oh, well, become a demon lord. That seems to be a logical next step to go with this character. It was also interesting to have this aspect that he basically had to contain the souls, so it did kind of circle back this aspect of, well, technically with Milim's story, the soul just, left, whereas being within this barrier, there was a chance that it would improve the odds of actually having her come back to life. But yeah, this was the point in which we get the huge comeback. After like all this dread, we finally get our moment where, okay, he delegates, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, these groups to each barrier, and then we're going to go to this area where all the soldiers are, and we're going to take our, 10,000 plus souls, and yeah, just all out battle, which was, again, it's one of those things where you have your story where your characters get beat down and beat down and beat down. It just makes that moment which they finally get their comeback like all the sweeter. Just everybody out there just kicking total butt. Like for example, Hakuro just like wiping out this Otherworlder with like very little effort. Just, okay, now we're on. Now I no longer have this stupid barrier on me. You're done. But yeah, after all this, that's when the festival actually begins. He summons. I didn't really get where they explain this whole aspect, but he immediately, when he feels like this aspect happening to him, I think even the sage mentions that the festival had begun. He immediately summons a gate to some demons. The demons show up to start grabbing the souls, I guess. I don't know that they ever necessarily explain this part of it, but it implies that I think that they had to gather the souls and for the offering to become a demon lord. But yeah, one of them is Diablo, which I did see Diablo. I mean, we've seen him previously several times, but I know that especially in the OAD, they did have this moment where he does show up to protect the teacher, and basically he's doing it because he feels like he wants to repay this debt to Shizue. So I don't know that in the first season they ever really showed Diablo's connection to Shizue, but I'm curious to see if they'll eventually get into that, or maybe I just missed it. But yeah, he's pretty dead set on becoming like this subject to Rimuru, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, they go back to the town, and he starts the whole festival, and he gathers all it. Yeah, crazy character changes happen to him. He gathers all of these. This magicite, whatever, and then he doesn't have enough power initially, which was interesting. So I have a theory, and I'm curious if this will be a thing that will come up later. He doesn't have enough power, even with all those lives, to revive everybody. So what happens is two of the demons that are with Diablo offer themselves up for the ceremony. Like, they're so willing to assist a demon lord, they'll even sacrifice their own life to allow him to become a demon lord, and it's like this great thing that they can pull out. Like, if this is like an honor for them to do. And so he sacrifices two of the demons to get enough power to revive everybody. Now, I don't know. I'm curious if this will become a thing later. Was it just their sacrifice created the same type of energy? Like, all energy is the same? Or does this mean a possibility of later, not only just the goblins that were all dead, but also with Xion herself, will we get a moment later on where this particular energy from a demon will end up being a unique ability for her later? Like, at some point down the line, suddenly she will unlock some crazy ability, and we'll come to find out, oh, that's because she got energy from the demon. It'll be interesting to find out. They also note that everybody got a unique ability that was in the area. It's a part of the festival as well, is that anybody close to you will get some kind of upgrade, which we find out later. Like, I think Benimaru got this leadership skill. Xion got Master Chef. Like, yeah, everybody else gets these cool things, but her, I guess it's important to her. It's good to her. He has the ability to make food taste good no matter how it looks, which still is a bad thing, but at least it tastes good in the end. I don't think they revealed what Shuna has gotten yet, but I know based on episode 9, it looks like she's gotten... I wonder if she got the Incinerate or something to do with the Holy Magic, because we never really seen Shuna fight. And I think episode 9 was the first time we seen her, like, really fight. So I don't know if maybe her holy power was based on that, or maybe her aptitude was increased. But I don't remember them mentioning what Shuna got. But yeah, obviously Sage gets upgraded as well to Raphael. So super smart Sage now. And then at the end of that whole thing, we get this fight between Carrion and Milim, and Frey jumps in the match afterwards. And this starts getting into this whole thing where Clayman's continuing his jerky moves in the background, manipulating everybody. I never realized that he was apparently a part of the Harlequin group, or I don't know if he's maybe just using the Harlequin group, Tyr, Laplace, and Footman, and then obviously Frey. We'll find out later that Frey basically tricked Milim into putting on a locket that controls Milim, which really sucks. I hope that we resolve this issue quickly. Hopefully in this meeting that all gets resolved. Yeah, this is when we get the meeting arc. This was rough. I will admit. Now, granted, it's like if a meeting arc was created by someone who thinks that his entire viewership and readership has some sort of inability to pay attention for more than 2 seconds, because the meetings get interrupted like every 2 seconds. But yeah, these were... And now, I'll admit, at some point I felt a little bit agitated by how long these meetings went. On one hand, I feel it's necessary. I think this writer gives a lot of attention to nation building and making how everybody interacts logical. Like, it makes sense that he would have to meet with this king. It would make sense that he would have to establish this in order for these bonds to remain. All these interactions are necessary for a ruler. It's not glazing over really anything. Now, granted, it could have just done like a narration over, yeah, and then I spoke to this guy and everything's fine. And then I spoke to these people and established this trade. And then I spoke to... But it makes it more solidified, and it makes you understand... It makes you remember things a lot better when you see it kind of laid out and explained. And you do have a really interesting cast to throw in there to keep things funny as it goes along. So on one hand, I did feel like, wow, it felt like, 7 or 8 episodes straight of meetings, which is insane. But at the same time, it's so much world building and it's establishing so much stuff. And it was funny, even though the meeting with Remedy was undone, it's like literally the next episode, suddenly now we have a meeting between Demon Lords with the meeting between, I think, Guy and, what was the other guy? Guy and the other guy. Guy and Leon. All those whole things were interesting. What I love so much about the meeting between Guy and Leon is it's the writer going, here, look, these Demon Lords aren't stupid. Like, they're not going to play off this idea of, oh, wow, Clayman just completely fooled everybody. No, everybody knows Clayman's doing something. It's like, they're not stupid. Like, everybody has figured it out. Milim doing this isn't logical. They know that. They're like, yeah, Milim doesn't do this kind of stuff. Clayman's doing something. Like, they're not dumb. And I really do love and respect when a writer is willing to have this aspect that, yeah, us as the viewers are going, why is she doing this? And then they go, and not do the whole usual thing of everybody was fooled by Clayman. No, everybody knows these are smart people. And what it's doing is it's basically taking one character, Clayman, and using him as a fool to show how everybody else is not stupid. That's the whole point. And I think that's great. I love when characters aren't stupid and they know what's going on. They are ready for what's coming around the corner. And I'm curious how that's going to play out in the meeting, hopefully episode 10, is how everybody's going to, what that initial conversation is going to be. Obviously, Clayman comes in that meeting and he's immediately almost taking control of the conversation because he's the one that basically called for it. But I'm curious what people's response immediately is going to be. Is it going to be all right, Clayman, stop. We know what's going on. Just shut up. What do you want? Like, what is your end game here? What do we need to be? What is going to tell us if we need to kill you or not? I'm ready for that to happen because I think it's going to blow up in Clayman's face really quickly. I think they're going to let Rimadu kind of dangle for a little bit just to see what he does, because it does seem like Guy or Leon specifically was like, well, let's talk after this at my castle if you survive this meeting. I don't know if he's saying that because he expects you could screw up and we're all going to kill you. Or if it's a thing of he expects that Clayman's going to get what he wants. I'm really curious how that's going to end. But yeah, obviously at the same time, we have this war happening against Clayman's soldiers, and they're wiping the floor with them. Benny Maru's like mad OP at this point. The soldiers of Milim were pretty cool too. The two monks, they were pretty cool. I love their fight too. Gabadu is turning out to be really cool. Gopta, I've always loved Gopta, so that's not too much of a shock to me, but Gabadu has been really impressing me. They've been improving those characters a lot. Specifically, episode 9, for those that have been probably skipped forward just to watch this segment because you don't care about my thoughts of everything else. Episode 9 was great. We finally kind of give a breakdown of each one of the Demon Lords. They mentioned, obviously, Melon, which we already knew. Ramadus, which was the fairy, we already knew. Leon, which is the cool long-haired guy that apparently is involved with Shizue's past. The statements he made during the meeting, I'm very curious about how that'll turn out. Carrion, obviously, who is... I don't know if they said that he's dead. It seems to be implying that he's dead, but I don't know. I don't know if that's one of those things where they're making it out like maybe Frey... Because Frey was the one that had the last grab. Like, Frey had him at knife point. But it hasn't really established if that was... If they didn't show anything. So I'm curious if maybe Frey is trying to pull one on Clayman, and she told Carrion, look, I need you to disappear for a little bit. Let this stuff unfold, and then we'll bring you back. I'm curious, like I said, because we didn't see anything. So I'm really expecting Carrion to still be alive. Obviously, Clayman, who's the jerk that Apparently, he's known for being the Majin controller. Some new ones that we haven't really seen yet. Well, we've seen him in the intro. Dagro, which was a giant Guy Crimson, who is really cool. I'm really interested to see more of Guy Crimson. Apparently, he has a partner that is Veldor's sister, which I completely forgot to mention. Yeah. Happy to see that the seal was broken on Veldora, and now we have Veldora is kind of running around as some... I think he said that he molded his self after like a bunch of mangas and stuff that he read out of his mind. But he's a nut job. Dino, who apparently is known for just being very sleepy. We've seen him in the episode 9 as well. But yeah, every single one of them showed up. Like I said, the interesting thing in the meeting segment is that, again, Leon confronts Rimuru right off the bat. And Rimuru said that he wasn't requested to do it, but he wants to punch him one time for the sake of Shizue. And he says, rejected. I refuse or something like that. And it's funny because he says how much he hates him, but Leon quickly replies that I didn't do anything to her. She made her choice. She rejected Ifrit, and she decided to live as a human, and I gave her Ifrit. So I'm curious if this is going to be one of those situations where Leon is technically not a bad guy. Like, all the shots that we get of Leon and Shizue is really cold-hearted, and he treated her terribly. But what if that isn't really the whole story? Yeah, maybe he did summon her, but she was technically possibly going to die because I think it was World War II they were kind of implying that she's from. A war was happening in Japan, and she was teleported. So I'm curious if this is going to turn into one of those things where, as we hear more about Leon, he's not really all that bad. And technically, him applying... He says specifically that she rejected becoming a Majin, which, yes, would imply that he would take away her heart and control her. But at the same time, he did give her Ifrit, which did prolong her life. Because with all the other students, they required to have some sort of spirit within them. So, like I said, I'm curious if that will... Just based on how he spoke, if it's going to be one of those things where Rimuru doesn't really know the whole story, and maybe Shizue didn't understand exactly what he was doing. He was cruel, but at the same time, he didn't necessarily himself do anything bad to her. I don't know. I just have a feeling of that. And yeah, obviously Clayman comes in with Melum and smacks her, and everybody's shocked, and starts the meeting. So we'll see where that goes. They also noted with Frey was a lion-looking guy with wings, and they were pointing out the fact that he's interesting because he doesn't have like a gob amount of energy like everybody else around. So I'm curious again if that's pointing that out for a specific reason. Obviously, Valentine's an interesting... I didn't get Valentine's thing. Maybe somebody can explain this to me in the comments. The way that they mentioned Valentine in their previous meeting, Veldora basically says, yeah, there was this one vampire chick, and I think he said like something, and then, no, I think it was Millis, but she's a demon lord, she's a vampire demon lord, and she has a short temper. But then it quickly jumps to Remeris saying, oh, yeah, and then this other Valentine person took over the kingdom for her. So it didn't at that time sound like they were saying that Valentine was a demon lord. The way that it was in the subtitles made it seem like here's this vampire chick, she's a demon lord, and she became a demon lord, and her kingdom got taken over by this other vampire. It didn't imply that he was a demon lord as well, so now they're implying that there's two demon lord vampires, but they're only counting them as one. It's very weird. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll explain it in the next episode, but I didn't really get what they were talking about there. So is there two vampire demon lords? Obviously, because they're both there at the meeting, and like I said, they specifically said that she is one, and that him being at the table means that he's one. So, but yeah, cool. On the other side of this whole thing, we obviously have several of the members going to Clayman's mansion to take him out. They end up running into Alderman. And this is, again, when we get our first moment where Shuna is pissed. And she's going to show her power finally. Yay! So yeah, while Sue and Hakuro basically fight these two on the side, she goes straight for they're basically their lead. He has all the souls within him, so he has to be taken out before anything else does. And yeah, they go at it, and she mentioned she uses holy magic. This freaks him out because he used to be a believer of Luminous, and he was basically betrayed by the leadership of Luminous, and he became an undead. And she said, all you have to have is like a belief to use holy. And in her words that she spoke to him, he ends up being able to do this incinerate ability, again, similar to what Hinata used. And as it's obviously building on itself, she's standing there, obviously very, very. And this is the other theory that I have for the unique ability that she gets. He uses this disintegration on her, and she uses an ability called Overdrive, which seemingly reflects it back on him. It seems like that's what it's doing. He said something about the fact that she's taking control of it or something like that. So what I'm assuming is that possibly the thing that she actually got from Remedy Ascending is Overdrive. And I think Overdrive is going to be an ability to reflect magic onto somebody else. Because she already has an ability to stop magic. So this would give her ability to, I guess, reflect it. But it's kind of funny after this whole thing. As they're just about to leave, Alderman basically shows up and he's like, oh, thank you for releasing us all from this land. Now we're able to be free. Please let me meet your god that you basically serve. And they're like, well, we don't necessarily revere him as a god. It's just Remedy. Oh, Remedy's his name. I want to meet Remedy. And they're like, okay, we could do that. But first we have to go to this place. And I love how Alderman like hovers up in front of them and like, here, I'll show you the way. Dozo. Just really goofy seeing this Gilding guy like, dozo. I think he's probably going to turn out to be a hoot in the future. But no, it was really cool seeing her finally, like, unfortunately, I mean, she is a princess, so it makes sense. And they were kind of pointing out during the fight, they're like, well, finally, she's no longer somebody that needs to be protected. She can protect herself. And she kind of went out there, like I said, and put herself out there and just kicked total butts. It was really cool. I've always been a fan of her. I think that she's always been pretty much my best girl. I mean, Milim definitely was up there the moment that Milim showed up, but from the beginning, I've always been kind of a fan of hers. So I think the only really kind of lingering, because I think a lot's going to come in this next episode. This next episode is going to be probably pretty insane. I think the only thing that I'm really kind of curious about is how they're going to play out this whole thing with Clayman, the Harlequins, and Frey and Milim. They've obviously finally revealed why Milim is being controlled. She put on this pendant. But at the same time, why did Frey do it? What is Frey's goal? It kind of insinuates a little bit in their conversation after Milim is first taken control of. It seems like this thing, like there's some sort of thing that he's supposed to fulfill for her. Obviously, Clayman wants to become a true ascended demon lord, but it is curious what Frey's goal is. I'm assuming that based on him going after becoming a true demon lord, he's offering like, once I become one, I will give you this or grant you this. But to do that to Milim is really screwed up. Of course, he does mention the idea that you think that she's annoying too, don't you? But obviously, she seems to be just kind of regretting at this point. I'm just waiting. I think in the end, I think Frey's going to be the one that probably deals a really solid blow to Clayman. Obviously, Remedy has to finish him off because Remedy is severely ticked off at this point. Very angry. Don't touch my friends, basically. But I think episode 10 is going to be pretty insane. And I'm glad I'm caught up at this point because I think things are going to get really crazy following this. So definitely looking forward to episode 10. I hope you guys enjoyed my impression and run through of everything so far and my thoughts on episode 9. Let me know down below what you think. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you have a couple bucks. And y'all take care.